Well, good evening, everybody. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for being here. We are pressing forward with live cultural events in difficult times, and we're grateful that you guys are here. My name is Mark Paris, and I'm with the Charlotte Center for the Humanities and Civic Imagination, the Charlotte Center for short, and our mission is to help people and communities flourish. The way that we do that is we bring people together around community issues through the lens of the humanities. And we have a variety of programming that we have underway. One's called Wisdom Wednesday, which is a daytime conversation series. We have SenseMaker, which is a initiative with the City of Charlotte, where we're gathering stories from across the region. And we have the Forum. And the Forum is our signature event where we bring people together around a particular format. And that format is Connect, Consider, and Ignite. Connect because we think it's important that all good things begin with relationships. Consider because I think we're only as good as the ideas and questions that we ask. And Ignite because we're all citizens trying to make a better world together. So that's our format, and that will be our format for this evening. So I'm really excited to begin our program with a little entertainment. We begin all of our programs either with a poem or a reading or something that we consider through the lens of the humanities that brings us into the mood of thinking differently about ourselves and the issues of the day. So I've got a couple of introductions that I'm going to make, and we're just going to jump right into it. So I think I've got my cards with me, or I left them at the table. There you go. Thank you, Laura. So first, I'm going to introduce them, and then they're going to come on the stage. But the first person I'm going to introduce is going to be our pianist, and his name is Keith Williams. And Keith is an accomplished classical and popular music director and arranger. Keith served as music director at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, where Dr. King and his father served as pastor. And then I'm also going to welcome a tenor by the name of Bernard Holcomb to the stage. And Bernard has a long list of credits to his name, including Porgy and Bess, Rigoletto, and Otello. Bernard earned his bachelor's in music from the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and a master's in music from the University of Michigan. He is understudying the role of Dr. King in the production of I Dream, but Bernard is the musical star of our gathering tonight. So I'd like to introduce both of them and bring them to the stage.
sick man perpetrate and scheme. I dream that our world will live love's way. I dream love will overcome and bring a better day, till the day comes, until its flame appears. Love will be my only theme. Love is how I dream. I dream this blessed nation might fulfill its founding creed. People are born equal with a fair chance to succeed. Pursue life's opportunities with freedom's flame to liberty's extreme. I dream that our world will live love's way. I dream love will overcome and bring a better day, till the day justice rolls like water and love flows like a mighty stream. I will sing, let freedom ring, let freedom ring, let freedom
So Bernard, if you could stay with us for just a moment, there's a question I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
What does this song mean to you?
This song represents hope. I think that over the last year and some change that we've been living through a global pandemic, a lot of people have been afraid to dream. A lot of people have been afraid to hope. And so to sing these words and to feel these feelings is very special for me. It's a good opportunity.
And what is it that you bring to the song?
I bring my life experience. You know, I'm an inner city kid from Detroit. Went through public school music programs and have been afforded opportunities to travel the world singing. And I think that some of those doors, a lot of those doors are open because of people like Dr. Martin Luther King. So this really is everything coming together for me.
Well, we're grateful for you tonight, and we're grateful for Keith tonight, so thank you very much. All right, so the first part of our evening is really an opportunity for us to connect and build relationships and make this an audience engagement, audience participation event. So I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Jennifer Dow, who will lead you into the next section.
Hey everyone. How are you tonight? Good. Everyone. All right. So I have a question and an invitation, if you'll join me. Will you close your eyes for the next 30 seconds? And I want you to consider, what do you dream about? Just take the full 30 seconds. Let it fill your imagination. And when you feel like you've connected with that, just place your hand on your heart or open your eyes. Thank you for joining me in that. So, as we move through the night, I invite you to keep that in your mind. Hold that in your mind as we move through the evening. And while you do, let's take a minute to meet our neighbors. And what I would like you to do is 3 closest people next to you, bonus points if you don't know them. And we're going to ask 3 questions. Ask and answer, introduce ourselves, and then what do you dream about? Why do you dream about it? And what difference would it make if your dream came true? So select 3 people, just turn in, and we have 10 minutes. So maybe somebody can be a timekeeper and enjoy the connecting. Okay, thank you everyone for participating. I love to hear the energy of everyone talking and connecting. This is excellent. I would love to hear from some of you. What came up in your groups? We have about 5 minutes to hear some of you share. Yeah. Well, do we have a mic that?
I can talk loud.
All right, girl, you got it. You got it.
The 3 of us all had like a really similar theme, and it was really just connection and community when it came down to it.
Okay.
We're all longing to be with the people we love and the people we don't know yet that we want to love.
Yeah, so what did that look like for one of you?
Individual. So for me, it was I miss hosting. I miss loving people and welcoming people into my home and into my community spaces, and that dream is starting to come true again. I love loving you. And
I'm missing events and concerts and gatherings and even small ones like this, but us all coming together, and that's what I'm dreaming for and waiting for to happen.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. What? Oh yes, we have a mic, so now we can make sure to hear everyone. Who else would like to share? What other group? I mean, I can call on someone. I'm a high school teacher, so. All right.
I'll put my group on the spot here.
All right.
We had a really similar theme, maybe from a slightly different angle. We all were kind of on the same wavelength about community and respecting each other's opinions, giving people a chance to be and to be themselves. And that's really what it boiled down to for all of us.
That's beautiful. Does somebody want to share an example of like what that looks like for you?
You want to share?
Somebody? Yeah.
It was really, we were all very much on the same wavelength. Once we started talking about it, we were talking about families and how generationally we don't see that there's, we see a lot more polarization, and we don't see that there's that as much of an effort being made, and maybe this just goes in waves, but we see less and less of an effort being made to understand each other. And that's what it boiled down to for all of us.
That's a beautiful vision. Thank you for sharing. Okay, who else? All right. Thank you, sir.
So I have not tested this theory on our group. So correct me if I get it wrong, but I feel like each of us in very different ways, the dreams expressed a way to get to a better version of ourselves. And a couple of us, not me, had made a leap beyond that would translate into a better version of the people around them.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Does that work, guys?
Thank you.
All right, we're getting some thumbs
All
ups.
right. Thank you for sharing. Let's take one more. Yes.
So Libby and Marilyn and I all seem to land on a theme that involved creating opportunities to support those around us, whether it was family or intergenerational or education focused. We all focused on creating support to build others for opportunities to create more empathy and connectedness.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Again, I invite you to hold these ideas and images in your mind as we move through the rest of the evening. We are going to return to them later. And for now, I would like to turn it back over to Mark.
Thank you, Jennifer.
My pleasure.
So I have the pleasure of introducing Douglas to the stage. Before I do, I just wanted to share that one of the reasons this evening is so special for us at the Charlotte Center is because we have collaborated with 3 great organizations to make it happen: Opera Carolina, Boom Charlotte, Charlotte Shout, and Blumenthal Performing Arts. So that's 4 organizations that have come together for this evening. And the conversations, the collaboration, the cooperation along the way has just been really significant for us, and I think a model of how we want to get things done and do things well in Charlotte. So I just wanted to thank all those who were part of that, bringing this together. So thank you for these wonderful partners. So now we move to the second part of the evening, which is Consider. So let me share this with you. Douglas Tappan is a writer and composer who was born and educated in the United Kingdom of Jamaican parents, a former commercial attorney and member of the Honourable Society of Lincoln's Inn in London, one of the 4 Inns of Court. He practiced as a barrister in England for 11 years, and then saw the light as an attorney and saw that there was more to life. Douglas earned an additional postgraduate degree from Atlanta's McAfee School of Theology, culminating in a dissertation entitled That There Might Be Inspiration, a critical examination and articulation of transformative music drama. In addition to composing I Dream, Douglas has also written and composed 6 other significant musical dramatic works, including Deliverer, Diva, and 2042. He has also spoken on the TEDx stage on rethinking rhetoric. And Douglas lives in Atlanta, Georgia, with his wife and 2 children, and his wife, Anna, is here tonight, and I had the benefit of having my conversation about dreams with her. So help me welcome Douglas to the stage.
Move this. Is my microphone on? Can you all hear me? Thank you all for being here. Really, really wonderful to have this opportunity to speak with you for a little bit. And I say speak with you because it's designed to be interactive. If there were a title, it is Dreaming in Reality. And I want to begin by asking you to help me with the definition of what a dream is. And you really can say what you think one is, or you can look it up on Google. Which works just as quickly, because I just want to start there so we have a common understanding. I'm primarily concerned about what a dictionary tells us a dream is. So who would like to start with that, please? See, we had some millennials here. They would have Gen Xers, they would have been at us already. Yes?
Visualized hope.
Visualized hope, okay. Anything else? Visualized hope? Visualized hope. Could somebody read me what the dictionary says?
I got it. A series of thoughts, images, and sensations occurring in a person's mind during sleep.
Okay, and I think, okay, another one.
A cherished aspiration, ambition, or ideal.
Exactly what I have written here, so we must have looked at the same dictionary. Okay, so which is very different from that definition. And so when you start with a dictionary definition, what you find yourself in a place of is just something that is purely what a dream is, without any sense of what its purpose is. And if you think about it, if you were to look up breathing in a dictionary, what would it probably tell you that breathing is? It will talk about the inhalation and exhalation, and the purpose of breathing is in order to, okay, and the same thing when we said eating, it would describe eating in a functional way that wouldn't necessarily tell you that if we don't eat, we, okay, and sleeping, the same thing. And if we were a little controversial here, we'll say if we looked at a different dictionary definition of sex, it might describe it as an act without purpose. And if you describe dreams as something that occurs without adding purpose to them, we find ourselves in a problematic era, because then we never begin to do the work that we're trying to do here, which is to understand what the point of a dream is. What's the purpose of the dream? Why do we dream? Now let me quote some lyrics to you for a moment. Where do dreams start, or come from, or go to? What do dreams mean? Are dreams real or untrue? The things that you hope for, you fear, can't make sense of, your present, your future, your prayers, your past, the ones you forget, and the few you remember, you wake and some images linger and last. Love your dreamland. Don't hurry to leave it. It surrounds you, secures you. You need it. And those are lyrics from I Dream. They're sung at a time in the piece by Coretta Scott King, but she's not only singing to her young daughter, who she's putting to sleep, she's also singing to her husband. I'm the writer and composer of I Dream, which is based on the last 36 hours of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. And it's based on his journey from the 3rd of April 1968 through to the moment of his assassination on the 4th of April 1968. It's actually, and you might imagine because it has the title I Dream, that it's a lot to do with the 1963 speech. It actually has less to do with that than you would imagine. Interestingly, even though some of the language that you heard in the song that was performed earlier is to do with the 63 speech, it's more to do with the mountaintop speech, which he spoke in the evening of April 3rd, 1968 at Mason Temple, shortly before his death. And if you remember the essence of the mountaintop speech, what does he say? He says that I've been to the mountaintop, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land, and I may not get there with you, but in essence, you will. Now, where's he getting that language from? The Bible. And so this is very pictorial language that Moses was using in exactly the same place when he was on, I think it was Mount Nebo or something like that. Someone could correct me. Says the same thing. And so the piece I Dream is all to do with that dream. Now, he doesn't articulate it as a dream, but he says, I've seen something. Had he dreamed it? Was he articulating something that in the moment he just saw then? If you ever watch the footage, it seems as if he's so overcome by emotion at the moment that he speaks that perhaps it was an imminent, instant thought that occurred to him then. But what if this had been something that he'd been experiencing for days or weeks or months or even years? And so the premise in I Dream is me imagining as a writer that he had been imagining the thing that he articulates there. And so the dream I'm more concerned with isn't the dream that he speaks of in 1963 in Washington. It's the dream that he never told anybody about other than with that language that he uses in the mountaintop speech. And so think of what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that he wakes up at the start of that day on the 3rd of April 1968, and he's been dreaming of a balcony, and he doesn't know where this balcony is. And we in the piece, if you've seen it or if you come to see it, you'll see the balcony image actually has a door number. And it's the door number that eventually he finds, and it's the balcony that he eventually finds himself at less than about 36 hours later in Memphis. And the significance of that moment is that this is the moment of his death. So we were speaking about, in our group, about when dreams are warnings. And when dreams are somehow things that we prefer as better outcomes than the actual outcomes. And we dream that it went well, and we wake up and it didn't go well, and we're like, oh, goodness, and wish we were still asleep, or that the dream thing happened in reality. But sometimes dreams are warnings that break through to us and tell us about something that is real and something that is of a danger to us, or something that we have to actually do something about. And my approach in I Dream is to write the whole piece on that basis. And so Martin is sensing that this dream means something, and it's important to him, and it's vital. And so his point, his purpose in the piece is to work out what the meaning of this dream is. What does this mean? And if I work out what this dream means, how must I live? Because I understand what this dream means. And so the balance of the piece is about him making sense of his life. If someone said to us, God forbid, that you have 36 hours left, how would we live those next 36 hours? Would we do the things that were already in our calendar? Or would we throw the calendar away? Would we call people who we hadn't called in years? Would we say sorry to people who we knew we had to say sorry for? Would we want to try and work out whether we'd done the thing that we were put on this earth to do in those last moments before we faced those last moments? And so he goes through this journey where he understands that he is both villain and hero, and he has to come to terms with that. That's an interesting thing in life when we accept that we're a mess, really. I put my hand up and say I'm the worst mess, and Anna's not going to disagree with me. But if you accept that we're a mess, but that doesn't preclude you from still doing things that help humanity, that's a realization that matters. And if you revisit important moments in your life and you think of the decisions you made and you think that I may have, maybe, should have made a better decision there, if you, as I said, you apologize to those who you should have apologized to. One of the very last acts he performs in the piece is he says to Coretta, there's so much that I'm sorry for. If there was another way, there's so much I'm sorry for. She says there's nothing to forgive you. So she covers his apology with a response of this love. He accepts, ultimately though, that he has done what he was meant to do. And imagine that at the point that he, in my piece, faces his death, he's accepted that his life has fulfilled the point, the purpose, the reason for his life. He recognizes that he had a gift, and the gift was given to him for a particular purpose, a particular place, particular time. I wrote it in a way that effectively makes everything post the Voting Rights Act of 1968 the decrescendo. Very early on in his life, I think it was in Time magazine, he spoke about being the magician who is reaching back into a bag that he knows is getting emptier and emptier, but the world expects him to keep doing acts of magic. And so there's a song in the piece called Magic, when they effectively say that the magic you do is charming people and making great speeches, but we know, Martin, and you know, that it's going to run out. And in his dying moments, in his dark night of the soul, he says, I've preached against war, as he did, fought the cause of the poor, as he did, but then he immediately says, war won't end. And I'm already clear that the poor ones are always going to be here. So he's recognizing that the purpose of his gifting wasn't to end poverty, it wasn't to end war, things which may never end, but the thing that he was meant to do was the thing that he did do, which was to teach the world to dream. And so he comes out of that dark night of the soul moment in a song called Beginning to Dream, where he says it's all terrible and it's awful and my life sucks and I hate it and I wish I'd never started, but at the end of the day, I think I can see a couple of people who actually grasping the concept of dreaming, and they're dreaming because I taught them how to dream. And if they continue to do that, and if they do that in community, then the world may be a better place. And the things that I've seen from the mountaintop, I may not get there with you, but surely as a humanity, we will get there. So for Martin Luther King Jr., the dream was vital to his life. It was vital for him to live well, and more importantly, it was vital for him to die well. But there's a problem we face. And it's this, is the reality we live in, is it neutral? Is the world around us neutral? Is our media neutral? Are the conversations we have neutral? Or does our world have personality? What I mean is personalities is have a voice that's actively resisting us. We use the word, I heard the word in our group, unlocking. Dreams unlock something. Is reality trying to lock something? To hinder something, to restrict something, to prevent us being something, doing something, achieving something? And if that's the case, then reality and its shape, its rules, its process, its orders, its standards, its systems, its norms, its pressures to conform, its confines, its limits, are actively opposing dreams. And let me prove that to you. How many of us remember what we dreamt last night? The night before? This week, one? Maybe I'm not going to ask you to say it. How many of us remember what we dreamt in the last month? How many of us have had dreams that we dreamt in the last month that we did something about? How many of us have had dreams that we've had in a lifetime that we've seen come to fulfillment? Okay. So what we're getting a sense of here is that reality might actively be resisting dreams. Dreams are easily forgotten, easily forgotten. I think the next tendency we have when we dream something is to rush it. And then if we're rushing into a world that is actively resisting dreams, what's the likely outcome? It's that we're going to burn out, run out of steam. We didn't plan enough. We didn't think enough. We didn't prepare enough. We didn't assemble an army of community to help us fulfill that dream. And so we sometimes abandon them, or sometimes we begin to believe that they were false. They'll never be fulfilled. And so I really think the truth is that everything we dream is going to face opposition. And so prepare yourself for that. In our group, someone was talking about dreaming of music and writing things. And if you don't have a pad of paper and a recording device next to your bed, the second you get it, the likelihood is that reality will resist it and you'll forget it. But the thing is, for me as a writer, and was my dissertation was all about that there might be inspiration. It's all about the process of inspiration. How does it come? What's its point? How do we set ourselves up to be in a place that we might receive it better? And what's the use of that to the world? And I think that inspiration in its limitlessness, its expansiveness, its possibility is vital to the world. But I don't know how many of us are good at accessing inspiration as writers do. How many of us paint? How many of us write books? How many of us write music? How many of us create things that we can point only to one source, and that was that it has to have been inspired? And so because that's limited in our world, I really think that dreams do the function for everyone of inspiration. Dreams are our sleeping inspiration. We have inspiration in the day, dreams are our sleeping inspiration. So what I'm saying to you is pay attention to them. Pay attention to them. I don't know that we can force ourselves to do better to remember them. But think of this. This is a Shakespeare quote. This is about inspiration. The poet's eye in a fine frenzy rolling doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven. And think about that. That's maybe what our dreams are about. We're looking beyond where we are to somewhere else, wherever that other place is. And as imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown, so prior to the fact that we give them body in our imagination, they're unknown, the poet's pen turns into shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name. I think dreams should do the same thing. I think dreams should be our glancing between heaven and earth, doing our best to remember them, to write them down, to ponder them, to reflect on them, and then to cause them to take shape, not with haste, not rushing, not losing hope, not believing that they were false, but seeing them through to the conclusion, recognizing that we live in a world that is actively opposing dreaming. So we all have dreams, I believe, as we've proved. But why is what it's about. So when I dream, there is a spine, which is a theatrical term for the unifying thought in the piece. And it's that I must grasp the dream. Every character somehow is trying to grasp the dream. King's trying to grasp the meaning of the dream that he wakes up on the 3rd of April 68, having had. MLK also has a separate super objective, which is a way of describing a character's primary motivation. What does he want, or what does she want? What are they going to see fulfilled by the end of the piece? And Martin's is to fulfill the potential of the magic given him. And magic's my invention from his own concept about that magician who's running out of tricks in the bag. A deposit of magic given to every one of us from wherever it comes, for a purpose, a place, and a time. And everyone has something. Everyone has something, and we call it gifting. We call it charisma. You can call it what you want, but you all have it. I have something. Every human has it. And I really am convinced of this, that every gift of magic is not for us. Your gift is not for you. Your gift is for your community, your family, for the world. Mine is not for me. It's for my family, for my community, for the world. I have a dream has often been turned into a very personal statement about my dream. And often if you watch talent shows and the ridiculous nonsense that goes on there sometimes, when people say that I'm going to be this and I'm going to be this and I'm meant to be this and I was born to be famous and you're wrong and I'll prove it, that's all about them. King saw that the dream that he had was one that would be fulfilled because of the strength of the community that he had built. And I believe that when we submit our dreams to community, they're way more likely to be realized because it's the community that helps us to discern the dream. Is it nonsense or is it good? And if it's good, why is it good? And if we do this together, what can we do together and what can we achieve? And so here's how I'm going to summarize it. Remembering that the super objective in a dramatic piece is, what does the character want? What's the point? What are they trying to do in the theatrical presentation? And so in the theatrical presentation that is your life, what are you trying to do? What's your super objective? What part do you play in the masterpiece of art that is humanity? And how is it that if you aren't your best self, that the whole of humanity suffers? And that the dream that you have realized makes the world a better place. Just as Martin Luther King Jr.'s did, and my task in my dream was to humanize a man so we could see that this wasn't a god idol status, yes. Iconic status, yes. But at the end of the day, a man like me, a human like all of us, who did what he had to do with what he was given in the purpose, in the place and the time that he was. So let me close with this. So maybe your dreams are trying to tell you something. Maybe they're just trying to tell you what your life super objective is. What are you going to do about it?
For a moment. I have one question for you, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for a couple of questions. So if you do have a question for Douglas, now's a good time to ask. But my question to you, what is your super objective?
I should say I don't know. Wouldn't that be fun? It's to communicate stories that are inspirational. I believe in the power of story. I believe in stories that are able to communicate a more hopeful outlook to a reality. And I want to do everything I can to communicate those stories to the world, however, through dramatic stories, through musical dramatic stories, through talking, anything. Don't care how it works. That's really what I feel as if it's about, and I hope that at the end of my life that I can look back and say that I did okay.
How is the world different because you're in it?
I don't know yet. I think that's always easier to tell from the benefit of hindsight. I believe we should pursue a sense of purpose as much as we can, and then history judges us and says whether we were right or wrong. So let the decision of my life be made in 150 years, maybe.
Thank you, Douglas. Thank you. All right, don't go. Yeah. So we want to open it up to the audience for a couple of questions for Douglas. Lily.
Some of what you shared early on reminded me of the phrase radical acceptance. The idea that when you encounter seemingly a paradox in your life and accept that it is true, although it seems like it couldn't be, you receive the freedom of radically accepting, that situation.
Okay.
Why do you think, what do you think is most meaningful about being able to recognize that we all have good and bad, we can have purpose and simultaneously be flawed?
It makes us, I think, let me refer to something Martin Luther King Jr. said, paraphrasing as much as I can. It's all about hating people instead of loving them. If I think that I'm perfect, then my immediate presumption is that everyone around me isn't. And if I'm a member of a particular political party and my ideology is perfect, then yours isn't. And my thinking is perfect and yours isn't. I'm a definition of righteousness, in a sense. When King spoke about accepting the villain and hero in each of us. And so that means that we begin to face an enemy by trying, and this is not easy, to see the good in that person. And so he was speaking specifically about trying to see the good in people who were attacking kids with hoses and dogs and batons and lynching and horrible things. How do you see the good in someone like that? His point was we have to. But in order to do it, we have to see the negative in us. We have to see the evil in us ourselves. If we're real about it, if we're honest about it, we realize that we're not really all that different. That the person opposing us cares about pretty much the same things. They're just different in the way that they do it. And they're trying to preserve something. In I Dream, Hoover is the significant antagonist in this realization. It's just about preserving, it's trying to kill every dream that isn't his, but it's the same thing. And so he's trying to preserve the dream that is his. And so I think radical acceptance of me and you gets us to a better place. I turn you as a former enemy into a friend by beginning to see the good in you. And more importantly, how much worse a human being I am than you are.
Other question from anyone? Thanks.
I have a question. This is what I've been thinking about it recently. I wanted to share it, even though it might not be, especially when thinking about reality and the dream, and I want to relate it to the Bible. And I'm wondering if my acceptance of the Bible personally, not necessarily as reality, but more so as a dream, might be an interesting way of looking at it. It's not so much a question, but that's what I've been thinking, is the Bible as a dream.
I hear that. It wasn't a question. So I'm not going to try and answer it. But anybody else can. That was way too, that's like a whole nother evening.
It's hard to say because it seems to be heavy for the second comment, but.
There's a lot to tease out there. One of the comments that you made about dreams being about purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because my understanding of the Bible is it's presenting a particular reality, whether you believe it's truth or fiction, it's a reality, right? And by accepting its reality, it should be transformative in some way, whatever it actually is.
Anyone else?
I like the idea that you presented that every person adds to that reality, every individual person. And I happen to be watching a program on TV about quantum physics and how the universe is just expanding. And you can't see the end of it because it hasn't ended yet. And that's how we become a part of that stream, that humanity is constantly expanding.
Absolutely. I very much believe in the concept of co-discernment, which is, again, presuming that I'm not right 100%, and so I have to factor into every one of my decisions other people, and not be afraid of sharing my only thought that might be weird, because you might help me understand that thought better. My wife Anna, I didn't ask you whether I could talk about you or not, but we do this the whole time. I'm married to her because I think she sees things that I don't see, and I hope there's a little bit of that the other way. But I think it's the process, the theatrical process is all about that. A writer who thinks he or she is 100% right isn't going to get on very well with a producer, or a director, or a choreographer, or any other creative designer in the process. It's a collaborative process that yields, hopefully, the best at the end of the day. But I think that's just a model of how life is meant to be, which would tell me that in the political sphere, everybody's voice matters. It's not about siloing. The actual only answer that the country needs is when we all listen to one another and somehow wrestle out the right answer for everybody rather than right and wrong, which is where we would prefer to go. But that's just my opinion. I don't know anything.
Well, I think with that last question, we're going to move on. But Douglas, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the final third of our show, which is Ignite. And it's an opportunity, again, for all of you to talk to each other. And I'm going to invite Jennifer back up to the stage to lead questions that are more community-facing, more about our role in helping Dreams interact with community. And we're going to start with a question that Douglas posed to us and a new word that I learned. So, Jennifer?
Thank you. All right. You guys still remember those dreams you were thinking about earlier? All right, good. So the first question that I should probably speak into the mic. That's what it's there for. The first question we're going to contemplate together is, what do your dreams tell you about the super objective of your life? So think about that dream. Think about that main thing, and let's turn into our groups again and spend another 10 minutes talking about that question and how might we be better enable people to realize their own dreams. One of the things that I thought of when I was thinking about that question is, what is that thing? I'm going to go to my note because I think what is that thing that I'm able to wake up the world to? That I'm just here on this planet to wake up the world to, the city to. What is that for you? So let's turn into our groups. Let's take 10 minutes and think about and discuss those questions. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. It was great to hear all the conversation. So let's chat as a group for a minute. The first question was, what do your dreams tell you about the super objective of your life? What are some of the things that came up in your group, that came up for you as you considered and discussed that question? We have a mic going around the room so we can hear everyone. Who would like to share? Did anyone discover the super objective of their life? And you can talk about this in a theoretical sense or a practical sense. What do our dreams tell us about the super objective of our lives?
Hi.
Hi.
We discussed a little bit about both of our dreams were sort of interrelated, what we wanted for our own lives. And we both came to this sort of place where we were looking for peace and equilibrium. And we thought about that in the context of everybody else talking about how they wanted community and togetherness. But what we realized is that for both of us, I think our super objectives are being able to help other people, being able to, we've got our own, needs taken care of, food, water, shelter, and all that. So what can we do with everything else that we're given? And something I think we both agreed on was that if we don't take the time to satisfy ourselves spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever that be, if we're not filling up our own cups, then we can't give to other people. Right. And we can't realize the super objective that we have, which is to be able to have a positive impact on our community, our neighbors, everything else. We can't do that if we're always struggling to catch up to our own needs. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I did think of the same thing. I'm glad you brought up what we were talking about earlier. I was reflecting on that, like, oh, that's an open door and an entry point into this super objective conversation is the things you were noticing as the common thread in what you guys were saying. And it's like that same activity of the mind, but then all the different things that we do as individuals over the course of our lives. What else did you guys discover? We can pass it around. Who else would like to share? Thank you.
Our group had a very similar, maybe roundabout approach to landing on that same theme and the idea of using our talents, our skills, our experiences to care for others, whether that is speaking truth to power, connecting people who exist in different circles that otherwise wouldn't intersect, or just to be an encourager and to nurture someone's spirit when they may be struggling to fill their own cup. So it's definitely outwardly facing.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. What else? Dreaming and super objective. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Our group pretty much has some of the similar themes that they were speaking of, but I'm going to go more to a center self, because it talked about your life, so that's specifically your life. And super objective would be the dream would be to face fears, and while facing those fears, you can still be courageous. And with that courage, that means going outside of this woman back here, going outside of your inner circle. So you're constantly expanding outward from the center. Take care of yourself. This gentleman over here said that. Okay, so expanding from your center self outward to a broader self.
Right. Yeah, I love that, because I think that I know for me, when I've been able to piece together more and more dreams and find that common thread, all of a sudden I don't feel like I have to choose between one or the other thing. All of a sudden there's like, oh, as long as I'm doing this overarching thing, I'm fulfilling my destiny, fulfilling my purpose. And if we can tap into that, but how can we tap into it if we're not present to ourselves and witnessing ourselves and hearing ourselves? So in that sense, how do we hear ourselves? I mean, are we noticing our dreams? What are ways, to piggyback off this question, we have a little extra time. What are ways that we can be more aware of our dreams and notice them and witness them? What do you guys think?
Just kind of circles back to the very first exercise we did, which is just be silent and just listen to yourself. Just become self-aware. We live in a very hectic world, and it's really getting harder and harder to find that moment to connect with ourselves and our being. And there's so many things going from the time you wake up to the time we go to bed. So I think finding those moments, no matter how infrequent they may be, but making them more frequent and just connecting and listening and embracing silence, the whole concept of silence, which we've mostly forgotten about, would really get us back to that, making the dream, stretching the dream, right? Making it a little more powerful each and every day so we can confront the realities that we're living in with the power of our individual dreams. I just
Yes, silence is hard. Good.
So silence, as well as from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. Dreams, for many, my first interpretation of it is from the time I went to bed to the time I got up. Right, so that dream and the reality and the silence that is of the sleeping time, those are the words that echoed in me when you were speaking.
Oh, that's a great connection. Like this ultimate silence, like I'm sleeping, rest. I love that. What else? How do we perceive our dreams, or any other thoughts on the function of our dreams in helping us see that common thread? Okay, let's move on to the second question then. How might we better enable people to realize their dreams in Charlotte, in our communities? What function, what role can we play in that? What came up in your groups around that question? Y'all had some energy in here, so I need to hear some of what y'all were saying. Yes, he does.
So I think we said a couple things. First is just to listen, which I think would imply creating or having the platforms for people to express themselves so that they can be listened to. And then the second part is believe them.
Believe them. I love that. Yeah. Who else? What else came up? Let's get 5 people to say something that came up in their groups. Okay, over here.
I was actually in a group across the room, but building on your notion of listening and connecting with people, our group was, and also building on the thought around courage, mentioned that we've got to go outside of our circles and challenge ourselves to have conversations and listen to others and try to believe them. So I like that.
I love that. Thank you. I think she has a... Who else?
I think mine is going to be more like your first question.
Yeah.
Always, I can remember when I was a child, I was very sensitive. And I grew up in everybody says it's a dysfunctional family, but it was a family that did not have a lot of sensitivity, encouragement, or affection in it. And there was a lot of judgment and anger. And as I would grow up, I found myself feeling different from so many of them. And as I got older, I thought, well, what I would like to do in life is, and this probably was crazy, but I kept thinking it was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to find a nursing home where you have, or old, assisted living or something where people feel useless. And you have maybe an orphanage where kids don't have families, so the kids could be attached. They could be attached and they could come and share with these older people. So they would get their affection and they would become purposeful. And so I thought for a long time that was it. But then I realized over my years, especially now I'm in my golden years, that my thread to all the dreams were either something that I was doing to help somebody feel good or be okay with themselves, or it would come to me something that I had done that I needed to make amends for. So when I tie them all together, I think it was my real goal was to take my family, my kids, my grandkids, and change the dynamics so it didn't follow for the next generation, and they would put out more positivity in life than negativity.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I love what you said at the beginning, too, about the environment that you're in. Because we have listening, we have believing them, and then we have this atmosphere that says it's safe to actually believe that and then go for it. Powerful. Thank you.
We didn't actually discuss this in our group, but I just came to this realization and really thinking about the question.
Speak it.
In terms of how we might better enable people to realize their dreams, is giving them access. So that's kind of like where I look at in my life of being able to help other people, is giving them access and opportunity to things that they may have never even had the vision to think about. So like, how many young kids, children, or even grown adults or elderly people, always like felt like they never had a dream or a desire or passion to do anything, but how much it was because they never had the access or opportunity to ever see what it might be. We talk about young kids, all they want to be is like either a celebrity or an actress or an athlete or something, but that's because through general social media, that's all that they're ever seeing that they're capable of doing. So I think, just a big thing is, expanding the access and the availability of different opportunities that people can have in so many different areas. And I think that can just really spark dreams into people.
Right. I love that. I love how you expanded the idea of access. I think a lot of times we hear access and we're like, access to this program or this as just an end in of itself. And what I hear you saying is that access creates the vision, because now I'm awakened to more, I see more. And so things I didn't even think about before, now I'm thinking about, and that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. One more person. I think we had a hand up here.
So what I'm going to say is also kind of related to what the gentleman just spoke, which was that living your dream and living your purpose is in itself an act of rebellion in this world. This world, through no ill will of its own, but just the way it's constructed, and we're kind of funneled into these neat little places, and society at large. It's easier to deal with an individual when you know what to expect out of them, and that's not always what you do when you live your dream.
Right.
When you live your dream, you have a vision for what can be possible that nobody else can see. And so when you're living your dream out, people don't really see the same vision as you, but they feel it. They may not be able to articulate it or put their finger on it, but they can tell that you are living your purpose and your dream. And when you do that, you set an example for the people around you to do it themselves. Because like the last gentleman said, there's a lot of people here who didn't know that living their dream was even an option. And if you don't even know it's an option, how can you do it? But if you see somebody who's doing it, you see somebody who's living their dream and being authentic, that lets you know that you can do it too.
I really love that. And what it brings up for me is the idea that if I'm going to do that, be that rebellious person, and I want people to witness me doing that and accept that, then what does it look like for me to witness somebody else living in their rebellion, to use your word, and allowing myself to be enrolled by that at some level? That's cool.
There are people in this room who do that right now. So
yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for sharing. I've learned so much from every single one of you tonight. And what I would like to do now is introduce our poet for the evening. Angelo Iambic Gieter is a poet, educator, performance artist who currently serves as the Poet Laureate of Rock Hill, South Carolina. He is the 2020 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellow and has earned the title champion at many poetry slam events, along with performing at venues and competitions across the nation. Angelo is the founder of the One Word Poetry Festival. His work can be found all over the web and is performing for us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Angelo Gieter.
Good evening, everyone. We can do a little bit better than that, right? We've been talking all night. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Jen, for that introduction. Appreciate it. You didn't have to say any of that stuff, but I do appreciate it. So as she said, my name is Angelo Gieter. My stage name is Iambic, which is Iambic Pentameter, if you ever heard of that. And so I do have a piece performing tonight that I think kind of goes with the theme of what we've been talking about. And I also have had the opportunity to see the opera I Dream. It was a great job, by the way. It's amazing. And I think when I think of Dr. King, he's one of my personal heroes. And I think of him and the other civil rights heroes of his time. The name Warriors always comes to mind. And so I have a poem that speaks to being a warrior, honoring the warriors before us, but also speaking for ourselves and being warriors for ourselves and things we want to advocate for. They say warriors are born in the middle of warfare. Soldiers are bred when gunpowder combines with the residue of fear stored inside of your vocal cords. When the oxygen in your nostrils turns into hand grenades with C4s lodged in throat. They call it a war zone. When tear gas suffocates your lungs. When bombs implant shrapnel in your eyelids. When terrorists begin to terrorize. When suicides turn into ceremonies. When Patriot Acts perpetuate operations that are supposed to endure our freedom, they call it a war zone when AKs, ARs, and MPs turn bodies into alphabet soup. When waterboarding becomes nothing more than just a buzzword. Iraqi soldiers holding machine guns in a child's face like Christmas gifts, Somalians stripped from their homes. This is what they all call a war zone. And while we're watching MSNBC, there's a real war going on in our own backyards. Where single-parent mothers are cradling their children like assault rifles. Deadbeat fathers using their fist to finger paint black and blue road maps on women's faces. When child support turns into another child left behind, gunshots swish through the air like jump shots. Police sirens sound a lot like Haitian mothers screaming in auto-tune. New towns in Connecticut turn into obituaries full of children that have been chopped, and screwed. See, this is no ordinary war zone. This is no Afghanistan. This is not Iraq. This is homegrown hatred, broken down using the Constitution as lighter fluid. Overdosing instead of enjoying the solace of our silence. Taking shots when they're shooting down our pride. Hangovers turn into hymnals, birthing blind ignorance. And y'all, there is no morning after pill for complacency. No plan B or exit strategy for stupidity. So we have forgotten we were born to be warriors, implanted with telescopes in our eyes so we never lose sight of God. Cell phones stuck behind our rib cage so our hearts are on speed dial. Warriors who mix Selma in our Similac, Appomattox in our attitudes, Montgomery in our majesty, Columbine in our cadence. Warriors with levees for legs, tsunamis for tears, and tornadoes in our teeth. Warriors who smile at fear, frown at death, believe tomorrow is a coward's excuse to delay our destiny. Warriors who march to the beat of our own drum. Warriors who march with Martin, sat with Malcolm, and break bread with future generations. Warrior who know that unity is the only language that can heal the broken. Warriors who know that Charlotte is a hornet's nest of culture, buzzing in every corner of the city, from Beatty's Ford to Blumenthal, from Noda to Ray Road to Stage Door Theater. We are all here united by our purpose. Warriors who know that the toughest battles are never won with human hands, but unity, dreaming, believing, and collaboration will always win the war. Thank you.
So we have a deep belief in the Charlotte Center that we all have a deep yearning to connect, that the wisdom is in the room, that the gifts are in the room. And if we do the work of creating space for our best selves to emerge, then good things will happen. And that's what we're about. That's what we hope you've seen tonight. That's what we hope that you leave the room with and bring to the world. So we're going to end the evening this way. So thank you so much for being here. So thank you for tonight, and we hope to see you next time.